Allow me to introduce Dr. Florence Wachira. Dr. Florence Nyokabi Wachira is a human resource management practitioner and a career public servant. Prior to joining the commission, she held various positions in the civil service of Kenya, where her last appointment was as Director of Recruitment and Selection in the public service. She holds a doctorate degree in human resource management, a master's degree in human resource development, and a master's degree in gender and development studies. She is a full member of the Kenya Institute of Management and a chartered member of the UK-based Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. She has vast knowledge and experience in people management and especially in talent development and management of diversity. She's a firm believer in truth, justice, and fairness in all matters affecting people, which I believe it's not only the fair thing to do, but the good thing to do. Put your hands together for Dr. Florence Nyokabi Wachira.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, a lot has been said from our website. Let me now introduce the organization from where that was collected. My name is Florence Nyokabi Wachira, currently a commissioner with the National Gender Equality Commission. So the commission was established by an act of parliament following the promulgation of the new constitution 2011. Its core mandate is to promote gender equality and freedom from discrimination. It's not government, it's the eyes. It's one of the eyes of Wanjiku, those institutions that were created by the Constitution to have an oversight on the executive, to check excesses, but in our particular case, what we are required to be doing is to monitor what the government is doing, find out where there is gender equality, in other words, access, equal access of opportunities, and equal representation, and also ensure that there is no discrimination. So when I was invited to this at first, I was like, women entrepreneurship, I've never been an entrepreneur. GEC is a monitoring body. I have just met Ruth this morning, but we've met elsewhere. I think I'm the one who forgot. But let me say, what I'm going to do is part of the monitoring aspect that the commission does. So I'm not, this is perhaps since morning, the first time that somebody who is not an entrepreneur, but a prospective one, is addressing you. But I've listened this morning, and one thing that struck me as we began this session is what the first speaker talked about. He talked about baby monitors, those who are there. And I reflected back with nostalgia, and I said, where were the baby monitors when we were bringing up babies? And I quickly answered myself that the same person talked of technological change, so that time they were not there. But we brought them up because you can see them. Our children are big now. So what was happening? And again, with nostalgia, I remembered that we were coached by our mothers, we were coached by our grandmothers, and two issues came to me, even as I thought of what I'm supposed to deliver today. What happened between then and now? Where are the grandmothers of women entrepreneurship that the young women entrepreneurs are having so many problems? What happened to that generation? And why haven't we perpetuated that generation where the old, the experienced, pass on this knowledge to the young and the inexperienced, and the cycle continues until we have thriving businesses in this country. So that's something to ponder as we talk about. Now, around 2014, the National Gender and Equality Commission undertook a review of policy and legal frameworks related to participation of women and youth in the informal business sector. That's the entrepreneurship. Now, this is a report on the same, and it can also be found in our website. Our website is www.getkenya.org. Unfortunately, I can't write, but Ruth will give it to Ruth. Why we did this is because we had interacted with upcoming women entrepreneurs and had identified 5 basic reasons why women, especially young women, were not making it very well in the entrepreneurship market. And we had identified capacity, that's the knowledge and skills required to carry out business, access to credit, access to markets, access to enabling infrastructure, and their total absence in the areas where decisions are made about entrepreneurship. So our issue was, is it that the government has ignored this sector, or what is happening? Because I told you we are a monitoring body. So we actually set out to find out what is the government doing about these areas. And I want to take us through what they have done in one of these areas, in terms of policy, in terms of legislation, and then I'll give you my comments on why, after this, then why are we where we are. So we found first 2 things. That the government is a signatory to many international conventions and commitments that address discrimination, and also the issue of enhancing livelihood opportunities for women and for all citizens. So it has done right in that aspect. The Constitution of Kenya, which we all, a few of us may not have been there, but in 2010, remember referendum, we passed it. And if you look at Article 43 of the same Constitution, it provides for economic and social rights for all Kenyans. That means all Kenyans are supposed to be enabled to maximize their potential in the economic, in the social, in the political spheres of this country. In particular, Article 27 of the Constitution, which is the article on which GEC has been created, there should be no discrimination. Meaning, what goes for this person must go for the other. We are all equal before the law. And that applied also, in particular to women, because it is estimated that women make up nearly half of the owners of small and medium-term enterprises. So what was the issue then? Our findings on this matter is that women continue to be marginalized and excluded from opportunities for participation. Majority of the women are not integrated even in the formal sector. The worst bit of it is there is no data even to support what I'm saying. If you go to any government department, you don't have any data, accurate data on women entrepreneurs and what they do, which means even as we come up with these policies, who are we planning for? Because if you don't know how many are involved, how do you plan accurately for these women? And then, of course, women businesses tend to be small. Of course, women are disadvantaged in terms of getting money, credit. You need to ask, and this is, even today, I have had occasion to go to a bank because I needed a mortgage. And I was taken aback. Taken aback because now I'm in GEC and the reality showed on me that we are still not very equal. Because when I was signing the mortgage forms, I was asked for spousal approval. And I'm the one getting the mortgage, is going to be paid from my salary. but I needed a spousal approval for KBC to proceed. See where we are? Exactly. So the government has come up with various papers, because the government is very fond of churning out papers. In 2005, there was a sessional paper. A sessional paper is a policy in government on development of micro and small enterprises for wealth and employment creation. That paper notes that women must be given equal access to formal education, to training, and it must also address high dropout rates of women from the formal education sector. This paper, I'll give a commentary on it, commits the government to promote access to training opportunities to enhance women's technological and technical skills, and to mainstream gender in all targeted activities. Remember, I'm talking of 2005, we are in 2018. So where are we here? You heard of poverty reduction paper. Again, there was also an affirmation not to marginalize any group, including women. Kenya Vision 2030 is there also, talking about government will take measures to increase training opportunities available to women entrepreneurs. How many of you have been trained by government? Put your hand up if you have ever been called to a government training institution for training. It's only one. Look, 2, 3. What of the rest? Then there is the Women Enterprise Fund, which was supposed to build capacity. In addition to loaning money to the women, it was also supposed to build their capacity. Again, this is not happening. So what is the implication of having all these policies? The policies are poorly implemented, that is what we are saying. And not just that, like I told somebody this, or as we were networking, the biggest problem is we do things to people. The government does things to people. It doesn't do things with people. Because I'm sure if you are to look at all these dimensions and all these policies, they are very good in paper and pen. But the implementation becomes a problem because I was not involved. You made coffee for me. You made tea for me, but you never bothered to ask me whether I take sugar or don't take sugar. You didn't ask me whether I like it strongly brewed or just light coffee. That is the problem that we have, and we'll see how we address these things. I could go on and talk about Youth Enterprise Fund. How many of you have had Youth Enterprise Fund? A few people have had it. Again, it's supposed to fund women enterprises and train them in addition. However, in all these documents, the allocation of responsibilities for leadership of implementation of these documents is wanting. It's not given, because if you create a department and it's up there, women entrepreneurs are not out there. They are not up there. Women entrepreneurs are out there, aren't they? In the Juakali. Exactly. So you are again not really getting the people. Now, with regard to access to credit, again I could go through Youth Enterprise Fund, sessional paper number this. Again, the paperwork was done. And what we have is a series of sessional papers. I think when I give the paper to Ruth, rather than going through all of them, you'll find there is no problem at all with the legal and policy framework as far as women and entrepreneurship is concerned. Even when we talk about access to markets, you have heard of Public Procurement and Disposal Act. Very good document that even says it will attempt to remove hurdles that lock women out of access to government procurement opportunities. How many of you are trading with the government? aren't you trading with the government? Our own findings as a commission found that as much as it is meant for women, the levels of corruption associated with this process, delays in payment, the bureaucracy involved, including all the many forms you need to fill, do not encourage women to venture into trying to trade with government. And it's even worse for women with disability. One, they are required to form groups. In your neighborhood, you are likely to find one woman with disabilities, another one is 5 miles somewhere. And I'm happy because George of Optiven said they are doing something about assistive devices. Many women, especially with physical disability, cannot move. They need an assistant to move them. And therefore have even been a subject of abuse as far as AGPO is concerned. Because they are told, sign here, we'll give you 200 shillings or 2,000. When we hear 2,000 and maybe you've been begging, isn't it a lot of money? And little do you know that that signature has just made you a director of an enterprise. And as a director of that enterprise, you are going to win a big tender in government because your signature was there. But you never hear about it after that. Well, we've raised these issues with government, but I'm bringing them up because these are some of the hurdles that a policy made up there doesn't address when it comes to implementing this down here. It's the same thing like before some of you may have heard of the economic stimulus program that was run. Did you hear of that one? Where they went around building sheds and they then went back and gave machines for welding. How many women entrepreneurs are in that business of welding? Meaning the target was again biased. It didn't address the needs of everybody who is in entrepreneurship. So what are we saying here? What I'm saying is that you can't fault the government in terms of legal and policy frameworks. They are up to it. However, and this, as I conclude, I don't want him to smile at me again until I sit down, is we have a multiplicity of policies, but they are not harmonized. They are not coherent. They pose challenges in implementation for any meaningful results. So the paperwork is there, but the impact on the ground is wanting. We also lack strong institutions with power to enforce adherence to policy. No sanctions for non-compliance is given in these documents. But then I'm also looking at the positive side. The power of association, and I'm now throwing it to you as a challenge. If you look at the same Katiba that gave us the ECOSOC rights, it also gave us freedom of association, didn't it? But we only read about it when a church is being proscribed, but we never really use it in terms of if half the small and medium enterprises are owned by women. Can you imagine what a powerful association those women would form? But women entrepreneurs have not utilized that which is provided in the same, because you need to know, and people with disability are pushing that way. Where you associate, then there is strength, you have a voice, and if you are honest with yourselves, like the earlier speakers are saying, that voice can enforce implementation. So that rather than going to Women Enterprise Fund or WESO, where there is a component of training, but you don't get training, you can insist on training, isn't it? Because the voice of Wajiko eventually is what will save this country, not paperwork. There is so much paperwork everywhere. The other thing is, the women in enterprises are in private sector, aren't they? Which means if you talk about the private sector, I know many of you are not in KEPSA, because again, KEPSA tends to take, you know about KEPSA and the bigger businesses. When somebody who runs Bidco sits and you're always trying to struggle to start a small manufacturing, you kind of, that confidence, even if you want it, doesn't come. You kind of tend to listen. But the private sector has a contribution to the whole debate, so that if not anything, again, through the private sector, you form associations, you can still push your voices through KEPSA so that you can also lobby for what is yours. Capacity building, I'm saying you can insist on it, but the other issue that I want to say most about it as I conclude is, there is the failure to include more women in decision-making processes. And this puts to mind that there has been a lot of clamor, even my own organization has been pushing for the 2/3 gender principle. Have you heard of this one? Yes. Now, if you look at Article 27(8), it does not talk about 2/3 gender principle only in Parliament. It talks both in public, in political and appointive positions. We need to support each other as women if we are going to get anywhere. So when we go to places, we come to you and we are saying, support the 2/3 gender women. I listened to the vernacular radio and you were here, the first person to ask, what do those women reps do? You should scrap that seat. Isn't it us? Remember, we are majority of voters, women, aren't we? It doesn't matter. Let the woman be. Tomorrow it could be you. But when you start negating the very essence of affirmative action, where you are put in a position which historically you are not able, or you don't have the capacity to get there, your voice, the voices of women, let them be there, but we talk about them away from there so that men, and with all respect to the men sitting here, so that men, when they go to Parliament or when they go to make appointments, don't say, women are their worst enemies. Isn't that the story going round? When did women become their worst enemies? When we copy fashion, we copy lifestyle, we copy everything from each other. When did we become our worst enemies? I see her here, I'm going to make mine like hers. Am I copying because she's my enemy? No, we have charmers that have run big businesses as women. Do we run charmers because we hate each other? So be careful that we are also able to pick the lie that holds us back as women in whatever field, including entrepreneurship. It's also important that we get involved in what is happening. This is a good opportunity created by this organization for you to network. You've been told this morning, don't get too busy hands-on that you have no time to think. Now, thinking and generating ideas comes from what Karinge is saying. You've had an idea, you are projecting it to your own situation and creating something new. But you cannot, if you are just there, not interested. Or watch those there, somebody is helping them to grow big businesses. Please get involved. Let every woman be the other woman's keeper so that we can mentor each other. We can grow each other so that as we associate, we are able to mentor. If your neighbor is strong, you are also strong, isn't it? And like Wachiri said, let us get the habit of lifting each other up, because that is the only way that women as entrepreneurs and in other fields of society, we are going to have a voice, mentor others, increase the pool of women who are doing businesses, increase wealth creation, and when we create wealth, because our politics is money-based, it will not be an issue that women can't afford to run for this or the other seat, or women can't afford to run this or the other business. Women can't afford to tender for this or this other project that the government or anybody else is tendering. And that's the only way we shall build women power purposefully. I want to stop there. Thank you.